Before filming began for the 2014 action film Need for Speed, director Scott Waugh shared a touching story about reuniting with legendary filmmaker Steven Spielberg. The movie, based on the popular video game series, features Aaron Paul in the lead role of Toby Marshall, a mechanic seeking vengeance against Dino Brewster, played by Dominic Cooper, who falsely accused Toby of a crime. During an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Scott Waugh reminisced about a touching moment when he reunited with Steven Spielberg before starting work on the Need for Speed movie. Waugh had collaborated with Spielberg on a previous film more than 2 decades ago, and he was pleasantly surprised when Spielberg not only remembered him, but also shared a warm exchange. This anecdote highlights the lasting impact and personal connections that can form in the film industry over time. During an interview, Scott Waugh shared a memorable experience about meeting Steven Spielberg before directing Need for Speed. He expressed feeling nervous about meeting Spielberg, considering Spielberg's stature in the industry and Waugh's background as a former stuntman turned director. However, during the meeting, Waugh mentioned to Spielberg that they had worked together in the past on Hook, with Waugh doubling for a kid on a skateboard. Waugh was surprised and impressed when Spielberg not only remembered working with him, but also recalled specific details from their previous collaboration, showcasing Spielberg's remarkable memory and attention to detail. But the main question is, could Need for Speed 2 ever happen? Need for Speed, despite earning $203.3 million globally against a $66 million budget, was considered a box office disappointment. Despite initial plans for a sequel, jointly produced by EA Games and China Movie Channel, there has been minimal recent information about Need for Speed 2. This lack of update suggests that the sequel project may have been put on hold indefinitely or quietly cancelled. Should Need for Speed 2 come to fruition, it appears that Scott Waugh, the director of the first film, will not be involved. Waugh has since shifted his focus to directing other projects like Hidden Strike. Additionally, the sequel was planned to be filmed entirely in China, a departure from the original movie's U.S. setting. Whether this new location would result in the return of Aaron Paul and other actors from the first film remains uncertain. Although there's been little information about Need for Speed 2, the first film served as a reunion for Scott Waugh and Steven Spielberg after more than 2 decades. This history suggests that if either director remains interested in continuing the franchise, they might collaborate again to develop a new installment. However, as of now, it seems that Need for Speed will remain a standalone action-packed movie with a notable behind-the-scenes narrative. On the other hand, the Gran Turismo movie is a unique video game adaptation because it's not based on the game itself. It's based on a true story about the game. The uniqueness of the Gran Turismo movie adaptation lies in its departure from the traditional approach of basing the plot on the video game itself. Instead, the film centers around the real-life story of Jan Mardenborough, a skilled Gran Turismo player whose abilities in the game lead him to participate in Nissan-sponsored video game competitions. Through his success in the game, Mardenborough transitions from virtual racing to real-life racing, ultimately kickstarting a career as a professional racer. Directed by Neil Blomkamp, known for his work on sci-fi films like District 9, Elysium, and Chappie, and written by Jason Hall from American Sniper and Zach Balin from King Richard, the Gran Turismo movie delves into the fascinating journey of a gamer-turned-professional racer, offering a fresh perspective on the video game adaptation genre. PlayStation Productions is actively involved in adapting its popular gaming titles into live-action projects, including the upcoming Uncharted movie starring Tom Holland and the HBO TV series adaptation of The Last of Us featuring Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. While most adaptations derive their storylines from the games themselves, the Gran Turismo movie is based on real events rather than fictional game narratives. It focuses on the remarkable journey of Jan Mardenborough, an actual person who rose to prominence through his skills in the Gran Turismo racing game, leading to opportunities in real-life racing and launching a career as a professional racer. With that, let's know, is Need for Speed 2 currently in development, or is there no plan for its release in the near future? Back in 2015, there were talks about a potential sequel to the Need for Speed movie involving a partnership between China Movie Channel, Giaflix, 1905.com, and Electronic Arts. Despite these early discussions, the project hasn't made any significant progress since its initial announcement. In the film industry, projects that stall in development often face uncertain futures. Actor Aaron Paul, who starred in the original film, expressed his openness to reprising his role in a sequel, but with certain conditions. In a 2016 interview with Collider, he mentioned that he would consider returning only if the script and overall concept of the sequel were intriguing to him. However, Paul also indicated that at that time, he had only heard informal discussions about the potential sequel, suggesting that there hadn't been concrete developments regarding its production. Therefore, while the idea of a Need for Speed sequel remains a possibility, it's advisable not to have overly high expectations for its release until further updates are provided. It would be disappointing if the rumored Need for Speed sequel didn't include Aaron Paul, who played a crucial role in the success of the original movie. His return would likely be welcomed by fans, adding continuity and familiarity to the sequel. There's also potential for Imogen Poots as Julia and Dominic Cooper as Dino to reprise their roles, considering their significance in the first film. As for the director Scott Waugh, there's a possibility he may be approached to return for the sequel. With Aaron Paul's interest in returning and his likely significant role in the sequel, there's optimism that the sequel could maintain the essence of the original film while introducing new elements to the storyline. The original Need for Speed movie faced challenges primarily due to its underperformance in the domestic market, where it failed to surpass $45 million in earnings, falling short of covering its production costs. However, the film found more success internationally, especially in China, contributing significantly to its global box office earnings of $200 million. The mixed performance, with a weak showing domestically but strong international numbers, presents complications for a potential sequel. Distributors and studios are hesitant about the sequel's box office prospects, unsure of how well Need for Speed 2 would perform, particularly in key markets. Marketing a sequel to a film that didn't fare well domestically also poses difficulties, as it requires rekindling interest among audiences who may have been underwhelmed by the first installment. There are discussions about the actual impact of China's box office on Hollywood's decision-making, with some arguing that it may not hold as much weight as commonly assumed. Since the initial announcement of Need for Speed 2 over 6 years ago, there has been little to no progress on the project, suggesting that it may have stalled or been put on hold indefinitely. Considering the considerable time that has elapsed, a reboot of the franchise seems more feasible if the series were to continue. This approach would be logical, as the original movie has largely faded from public memory and interest. As we wrap up our discussion on the potential sequel to Need for Speed, it's clear that while there were talks and initial plans, the project seems to have hit a roadblock in its development journey. What are your thoughts on the potential Need for Speed 2? Would you like to see Aaron Paul reprise his role, or do you think a reboot would be a better approach? Share your opinions in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and want to stay updated on all things related to movies, gaming, and entertainment, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more updates. Thanks for watching.